Hello and welcome into the conversation. My name is Bill Kenney, and welcome to the SNL Hall of Fame Roundtable for Season 7. And we are live. We are live on YouTube tonight. So make sure if you're in the chat to drop your comments. Let us know what you think of our crazy picks or if you agree with us. And I'm so excited to be joined by two wonderful people in the SNL community. Deej Barons is joining us for the first time on the SNL Hall of Fame,
Yes,
co-host of the We Heart Hater podcast. How's it going, Deej?
it's going okay. I've actually had to. We're pushing our recording day. We usually record on Tuesday, so we're recording tomorrow, so we can. I can basically join you guys. Luckily, I have a pretty good flexible work schedule. I just have to start half hour early, so I had time to relax a little bit and get on in time. So, and I actually have another potential podcast in the works because I've been really good with Sherry. We were talking a lot, and she was promoting that. Okay, she doesn't have the water cooler anymore. Then I thought, a female-centric podcast called Saturday Night Ladies, and she's in.
I love it. Oh, that's great. Count me in for
Cool,
as a listener. I love that idea.
awesome.
So, Deej, before we go to Thomas, I want to get, since it's your first time here in the Hall of Fame, kind of give us a quick summary of your SNL origin story. When did you get into the show? How have you become a super fan over the years?
Well, I started in the Ebersol era. That's when I was in high school. Gary Kroger, huge crush on him. I actually wrote a fan letter, and he wrote me back. And unfortunately, I don't have it anymore because there was a flooding in where I had some stuff in storage, and unfortunately, that got taken away with it. But I've been with the show pretty much throughout. I had a little bit of break in from season 15 to 20 or so, but I've catched up on back things. And then, of course, with all the Bill Hader area, also, as you can tell by the podcast that I produce, so I've been watching pretty much since I was a teenager because I was born in 1968. So, and of course, going back to reruns on the previous episodes. So I've been with SNL for a while.
Yeah, it's rare that I get to talk to someone who started watching before I did. You know, John
Yeah.
Schneider over at the SNN likes to call me a little man. We're not old though. We're in our prime, I like to say.
I am a woman of experience. I've
There
seen
you go.
things. I've seen things, and I've done some things that I best not talk about here. Okay.
Well, welcome in, and this is going to be a wonderful conversation. Also joining me, I don't remember what podcast he's from. Let me see if I can get this right.
I don't remember what podcast I'm from.
Pop Culture 5 co-host, former conversationalist here at the SNL Hall of Fame, and someone who's now my Dana Carvey coming back to the show. A treasured cast member coming back for multiple stints. Thomas Senna, how are you?
I just can't stay away. I'm like the guy who lives in Studio 8H. You just really can't get rid of me. So I'm doing okay. Deej, I guess the Gary Kroger fan letter that I saw on Storage Wars was yours.
No, I wish it was. It was flooding. A bunch of my old pictures of my old cats got destroyed. So, and I've been listening to your podcast. Really, really good stuff. Of course, I got the SNL stuff done first, but I'm just getting through all the episodes. So you do a really, because again, I've been part of pop culture for 55 years. So
I appreciate it. I'm doing well, Bill. Got the fan going. It's headed into June, so all us podcasters have fans in the background as we were talking beforehand. So things are good.
That's right. Well, Thomas, I have to ask you from your unique perspective. Now, you hosted a lot of these roundtables, and you always had to kind of play, moderator cop, where you had to, okay, you only have 15 picks, and the common refrain was, they didn't make my list. They were 16th or 17th. As I'm going to get into with the rules here, things have turned on their heads. Are you excited for the changes in season 7 here?
I'm really curious to see if people put their money where their mouths were. So it's like, oh, if only I had more picks, and then you end up getting more picks, and it's like, okay, now let's see what happens. I found that with me, it was like, I think with unlimited picks, in an odd way, I was a little more strict with who I put in and with my standards and everything. So I'm curious to see if that has maybe the opposite effect that we think it might.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think I went big with my picks, just because I did keep my money where my mouth is, Thomas. There were plenty of people that we discussed in season 5, season 6, that it was like, oh, they're so close. If I didn't have to give this to the writer who's falling off the ballot. So, as I alluded to, the rules are very different this time. It's the final season of the SNL Hall of Fame. And what we're doing this time, it was a 15 pick limit before. Now it's unlimited. There's a floor of 5, and there's 39 people on the ballot. If you want to vote for 39, go crazy. If you want to vote for 6, that's okay too. But this is your opportunity, one last shot to get as many people into the Hall of Fame that are deserving
Yes.
in there. So I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. So what we're going to do is we'll just kind of go around the horn, get to as many picks as possible. Make sure for both of you to bring up the people, not necessarily that's number 1 on your list, that everybody's going to have, but somebody that you really want to make the case for. So somebody who's kind of on the fence, probably not arguing in their mind about somebody like Cecily Strong, but might want to throw that vote to a writer or to a host or somebody like that. So yeah, so let's get into it. I'm going to announce the 39 people, as I said, that we have on the ballot this time. We have 21 cast. We have newcomer Cecily Strong, Chevy Chase, Jimmy Fallon, Dennis Miller, Kevin Nealon, Tim Meadows, joining Adie Bryant, Anna Gasteyer, Beck Bennett, Bobby Moynihan, Sherry O'Terry, Chris Parnell, Fred Armisen, Garrett Morris, Joe Piscopo, John Lovitz, Lorraine Newman, Rachel Dratch, Taryn Killam, Tracy Morgan, and Vanessa Bayer. So that's the biggest category, of course. Then we have 7 hosts. So adding to the ballot this year, we have Jack Black, Josh Brolin, Larry David, and Zach Galifianakis, with returning nominees Adam Driver, John Hamm, and Martin Short. 9 writers on the ballot. We have added this year, we have Ann Beatts, the combo of Bonnie and Terry Turner, Tom Schiller, joining Adam McKay, Alan Zweibel, Bob Odenkirk, Herb Sargent, John Mulaney, and Rosie Schuster. And this poor little category, musical guests, we have 2 newcomers joining no one, Eminem and Aerosmith. So quite a ballot to talk about. We've had a lot of fun conversations this year about the new people. Thomas had a lot of great conversations in previous years about the people who are still on the ballot. So Deej, why don't you start us off? Give us somebody that you want to talk about right off the top here.
Well, not only because she is such an important part to the initial architecture of Saturday Night Live, and the fact that she's Canadian, not to mention, I'm talking about the one and only Rosie Schuster, who is long overdue for being on there on this list. I mean, comes from Canadian comedy royalty. She's the daughter of Frank Schuster of the Wayne and Schuster, who had an exclusive contract with the I'm losing the guy's name. He did the variety show back in the 50s and 60s. Why am I not remembering? Oh,
I'm not sure.
Um,
Ed Sullivan?
Yes, thank you. Old brain, what can you do? They had an exclusive weekly contract with for 65 weeks with that show, and the women of SNL, especially in the beginning, they had a tough time because I was listening to a podcast this week with an interview with her from Bob Brieux, who is a Canadian television columnist up here, and she explained how one time to get something that John Belushi would read, she had to only put initials on there. She could have put her name on the script, and they just got such a short shrift, especially in the early days. It was very much a male-dominated kind of area, but in some of the classic sketches that she came up with, I mean, there's a lot of the beginning of SNL that would not exist without her. And of course, Ann Beatts also falls into that category. But Rosie Schuster, because she's a great Canadian, and also one of her relatives is Joe Schuster, who was half of the team who created Superman.
There you go. That's great information right there. Yeah, Rosie is a very, very interesting case. I think not only with the movie that came out last year about Saturday Night Live, but the book that came out about Lorne was a very interesting read. I highly recommend it. And Rosie, you get a lot of information from Rosie about Lorne's beginnings, and his admiration of her father, and it's really you know the movie makes it as if she was trying to decide if she was going to be called Rosie Michaels. Obviously, that was nonsense. It wasn't decided that night, but that's neither here nor there. Thomas, is Rosie on your ballot?
You mean the movie wasn't 100% historical fact?
It was not. No.
Yes!
Oh,
No.
crush my dreams.
I'm gonna have a heart attack and die. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, right. Rosie did make my ballot. She was one of the final ones on my ballot. I was kind of staring at her name, and I think she was an important voice in the room in the early years. I think she was able to give a perspective that the Good Old Boys Club, it existed back then. I think she was able to really give a perspective that they couldn't. The Hard Hat sketch in particular, early on, is one of the main things that I point to, where it's like Lily Tomlin hosted, and it was the women of the cast and Lily Tomlin just like catcalling Dan Aykroyd in his short shorts and everything. And the movie makes it out like Aykroyd was uncomfortable with it, and he actually was uncomfortable with it. So I think that was a nice little touch that they made Aykroyd uncomfortable with something. Yeah. She had a hand in church chat. She helped Dana get church chat going, which stretches obviously beyond the first 5 years. So a lot of people associate Rosie with the first 5 seasons, but she and Dana worked on turning the church lady character into an actual sketch for SNL. So I think that was huge. Fred Garvin was one that she was behind. That came about as a real bit that Danny used to do in the privacy of their own homes. The Nerds was Rosie Schuster, and obviously it was a collaboration, but Rosie was heavily involved in that as well. So I think
Rosetta Dana as well.
I think she may have worked with was it Rosie who may have worked with Gilda on Rosanna Dana?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Zweibel was involved too.
Zweibel, if it's a Gilda thing, Zweibel was definitely involved in it too. So I think Rosie's fingerprints were all over there, especially the first 5 seasons. The church chat thing, she made my list. I think that's a great pick. I'm glad you brought her up so we could talk about her.
Yeah, when Rosie does come back, it's really interesting. She has a big hand in the resurgence season of season 12. She not only gets involved in church chat, who she eventually hands over to someone else on this list, but she has a hand in the Sweeney Sisters as well. So 2 of the main pieces of the second golden era that were put into place with season 12, Rosie had her hands on, along with all that great stuff that you've both mentioned about her first 5 years on the show. Very important to the show.
Yeah, and a little cross promotion. Brad and Gary from the Not Ready for Primetime Project did a really great interview with Rosie Schuster pretty recently, and she had a lot of great things to say. She was very candid. Like, I appreciated her candor during that interview. So they got a lot of good stuff out of Rosie. She seems like a delight. So go and listen to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. Brad and Gary did a great interview with Rosie Schuster.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think 3 across the board for first pick, Rosie Schuster. Thomas, where are you going to take us on the board? Who do you want to mention first?
Well, Bill, this isn't going to be a surprise to you and to a lot of listeners with who I want to start off with advocating for. Deej hosts a Bill Hader podcast, co-host with Casey. If I was to pick a podcast to do on a former cast member, I might call it something like We Vouch for Vanessa, something like that. I don't know. I have to workshop the name a little bit.
I would be so in for that.
Yeah, I'm talking about Vanessa Bayer. I'm very much talking about Vanessa Bayer. And not just because she's like a personal Thomas favorite. She and Will Forte are my 2 favorite cast members of all time. Vanessa, if you look at her resume, if you just look at the sheer numbers and the sketches, the body of work, she's a Hall of Famer. She's a top 20 to 25 cast member of all time if you just look at the body of work. Like, people know Miley Cyrus, Jacob the Bar Mitzvah Boy, Totino's trilogy. I can go on and on. The body of work is there. She got swallowed up by, it was kind of weird because she started with Kate. Well, Kristen was still on the show, and then she kind of got overshadowed by some of the other cast members. She got overshadowed a little bit by Bill, Fred, and then Cecily, Kate, and Adie kind of overshadowed. So Vanessa just sort of like quietly went about her business and put together a Hall of Fame resume, in my opinion. So I want to urge people, go back and look at Vanessa Bayer as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, great pick here. I think, as you said, like this is, if you dropped her into another era, she's the star of the show. If she comes on in season 18 or season 25, like you really can see where she would have overtaken the show. She just had that unfortunate timing of all these incredible Mount Rushmore women and men being on the show. But she's definitely on my ballot. Deej, is she on yours?
Definitely, yes. I mean, Bill Hader described her on the Seth Meyers show, where Vanessa's like a newborn anything. She likes to look around and like, oh, look at things, because she was telling the story about when they were doing press for Trainwreck, and they got stoned and they sort of got lost in the red light district. And the little bit that she did with those two on the show was great. J-Pop, America Fun Time Now, another great classic, because I love all sorts of music, especially like K-pop and Thai pop and all these things. And it's just, I knew people like that who are just way too obsessed. And then, of course, you have their teacher trying to disavow everything and everything with they do. But no, Vanessa's just a rare sunshine, and she does not break. Very rarely does she break. Like in the Super Showcase, when Bill was just barely contained himself, she kept her composure. Same thing in the Cut for Time with the two doormen. That's good. She just kept smiling, that beautiful smile of hers. And she's a juvenile cancer survivor. She's just been through so much in her life, and she's just joy and funny and musically talented. So it's long overdue for Vanessa.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really interesting to look at some of these people in hindsight, and you can really have a greater appreciation for what they were able to do on the show. Sometimes when it's happening in real time, you can kind of lose the forest for the trees. And Vanessa's one of those people, and she went out on top. I mean, Dawn Lazarus is a fantastic character that she does right at the tail end of her time on the show. Yeah. And yeah, she's somebody I think I've said before. She's up there, top 3 or top 5 of alumni that need to host that have not hosted.
Can't forget Rosa on the Californians.
Yeah.
I remember that one time we were doing the mirror bit, and Vanessa, she comes in, she's actually spraying the mirror, and she actually smiles a little bit there, so I think she came close to breaking. But her and Rosa, and plus she got to kiss Bill Hader. Damn her.
I think my single favorite thing that Vanessa did was Santa Baby with Ryan Gosling. Santa Baby, it's an all-time classic, and she was perfect in that. So you can hear more about my thoughts when I come out with the Bonkers for Bear podcast in 2026, everybody.
Pop culture Vanessa. Just every week. And if you haven't seen, I don't know if either one of you have seen the show. I Love That for You.
Yes.
She is incredible. Absolutely. And she works with Molly Shannon, of course, another unbelievable person. So
I was so sad when that didn't get picked up again.
I know.
I love
don't
that
think
show.
Enough eyes were on it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Matt Rogers, Bowen's podcasting partner and good friend, is in that show as well. Really
and Jennifer Lewis, who is like, I will watch anything of Jennifer Lewis. She is just like, I love you, one.
So yeah, we're 3 for 3 again. Deej, where are you going to take us next?
Okay, we're going to go back into the cast here again. The SNL sweetheart, the wonderful, effervescent Bobby Moynihan. Bobby Moynihan is a treasure from day one. And I've never met him personally, but I've heard interviews and seen things, and it's like, he just seems like the sweetest man. And with that moment in the SNL 50 audition biography, pardon me, sorry. The way he was so emotional about, I was on that show and I loved you on that show. Bobby Moynihan is like Drunk Uncle, of course, it's a classic, and he can also roll the punches, because going back to the Cut for Time sketch where Fred and Bill knew that, okay, this is going off the rails. So instead of calling him by his character name, he called him by his own name. Hey, Bobby Moynihan, and he just rolled with it. And every time I come on, he comes on the screen, and he's versatile. The Crispino, he with the voice up and up and up. One of my other favorite things he did was Snagglepuss, when they were talking about Proposition 8 in California. He's just joy in a nice package, and he's talented. And with his story of auditioning, he was supposed to get on, but then he got a call saying, okay, well, Maya's off to have her baby, so we need to have another female. And that's when Seth Meyers contacted him to be part of a 6-piece short called The Line for the online arm of Broadway Productions, Above Average Productions. So it's kind of like a nice little consolation prize. But then, of course, he came up later.
Yeah, I love Bobby. He's come on the Saturday Night Network a couple of times, and he is a genuine person. You can tell as that documentary that you're alluding to, and also just in conversation, he actually appreciates the history of the show. He was a fan of the show.
Yeah.
It would be like one of us getting on SNL, I think, because it would just be like, I can't believe I'm here, and it never seemed to fade for him. And he had so many great sketches. Another one who never really led the pack, but he was in so many great things. I still like to say my little kid cat. I think that's one of his best sketches.
And of course, Vinny Veneci's son.
Right? Yeah, another great.
How do they make the movie with the screen and the butter that's coming truck and this and what and how?
Papa,
well
Papa.
done.
Yes, that was perfect.
You can probably guess I watch that sketch a lot.
Thomas, is he on your list?
I'm still wrestling with this. I love Bobby. He seems like the nicest guy, has like the most infectious laugh. Whenever I hear him in interviews, he's just such a great audience. He just laughs so much. He just has the best time. I know he's a fan of the show, like the history of the show. I unsuccessfully reached out to him for SNL Hall of Fame for the Lorraine Newman episode, because that he always talks about how much he looked up to Lorraine Newman. It's hard to get a hold of someone like Bobby unless you're John Schneider and you just have ultimate connections. But alas, but I'm still wrestling with Bobby as much as I love him, because he was the consummate utility player. But I don't know if he's Hall of Very Good or Hall of Fame. He's one of those that's right on the line for me, and I'm gonna have to. I might not be able to sleep the next few nights, just kind of thinking about this with Bobby. I loved Riblet on Weekend Update. That was perfect. Yeah, when he was just doing his Riblet thing, and then Shay's like, well, why don't you try it? And then he had like the perfect cadence, like the perfect Weekend Update cadence. And I Drunk Uncle, of course, is the best. But whenever they would just give him, I don't know, 10 seconds to shine in like a Kings of Catchphrase comedy, for instance, Bobby like
Pappy.
Ask Dan.
Ask Dan, and he really even only did that as a picture, I think, or maybe he had one line as Ask Dan. I don't know, but that's how much people love Bobby, is they associate him with the character that just like was a still photo of Bobby, and we just loved him for that. So I'm gonna have to think about Bobby Moynihan a little bit more, but just love Bobby.
Just one more little behind-the-scenes story in his history, because again, everything for me comes back to Bill, is when his sketch group was brought out to New York to perform for Lorne at the UCB Theater. He was in the audience that night.
There you go.
And he had a conversation once he got on the show, talked to Bill. Was like, were you guys really pissed off they were there? Yes, we were. We were very angry they were there.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said, Thomas. So if he had gotten back to you, would he be on your ballot? Is that what you're trying to say? If he's listening right
100%.
now?
Yeah, no, case closed. If Bobby had been my guest for the Lorraine Newman episode, we're not having
We're
a
not
maybe
having-
discussion right now. That's how that lets you know about me. I'm easily bought.
Putting your finger on the scale there, Thomas.
Yes.
Yeah, Thomas. So who do you want to go to next? Now
Mhm.
we've gotten 3 cast members. Give me somebody else. Give me a writer, or a musical guest, or a host.
Let's see. I'm gonna go with a host, actually, and it's one that I think some people might overlook because he only hosted twice. So it's like, oh, maybe he doesn't have enough reps. He hasn't hosted enough. But Hall of Famer, you know it when you see it. And Larry David, I knew, a lot of us knew from his first episode, his first time hosting, that this guy's a Hall of Fame host. So I don't want people to look Larry David over in favor of maybe lesser hosts who have hosted more often. Larry David only needed 2 times to show the world that he was a Hall of Fame host. I happened to be Bill's guest this season on the Larry David episode, so you heard me kind of preach about it there. Thank you for coming to my Larry David TED Talk. But he was just such game, especially that first episode. Man, like Kevin Roberts, Burn Your Enthusiasm, which is one of the best pre-tapes in the last 10 to 15 years at least. In the second one, Beers with Kyle and Beck, he was able to play in that weird Kyle Beck sandbox. So I really think, even though he's only hosted 2 times, I think Larry should be a Hall of Famer. And I bring him up now because I think people might overlook him for that reason.
Yeah, it was a great conversation with you, Thomas, and we both showered accolades on him, and I love strange things about the history of the show, something that you don't see anywhere else, and for somebody like Larry to come in after one of the worst seasons an SNL writer has ever had, in season 10, just kind of in the background, getting one sketch on the whole year, coming up with about 12 different Seinfeld episodes while he's stewing in the background there. But, he meets Julie Louis-Dreyfus because of this, and, he makes that relationship and eventually goes on to all the things that we know him from. But for the comeback story of all comeback stories, just because he looked like Bernie Sanders and was doing cameos during his presidential run, it was so great to see, and 100% he's on my ballot. Deej, is he on yours?
He is not. Not that I do not appreciate him. Do not get me wrong. So of course, the fact that he had the balls to walk out and just like, oh, what the hell have I done? And then come back, just act like nothing happened. And like, of course, got turned to.
That's like one of my favorite entertainment stories of all time.
Yes.
Bar none.
I mean, we know he's also related to Bernie Sanders. He went on the show Knowing Your Roots, and it turns out that basically I think he's like a cousin or something. So they are actually family. And I've heard a few stories about other things when he was on doing Seinfeld. Because I had recently listened to Fred Stoller's book, which is The Life of a Perpetual Guest Star, and he was talking about all the things, the process of writing behind the scenes, and the dedication he just puts into his work. I mean, and also when he went on to Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was largely improvised. It's just, but I do appreciate him for his talents, but it just didn't quite make the cut for me. There's just some people that were a bit more important to me. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's all right. That's why it's your ballot. I have to share this quick story. John Schneider, who got to do the red carpet at SNL 50 and had so many great interviews with so many different people. But this was my favorite one. He said that he saw Larry and he said, Larry, can we have a minute of your time? And Larry went, and walked away. And I said, well, that's better than an interview.
Better than an interview.
Got a Larry David response. Close the book.
Yeah, the interview might have been fine, whatever, but you have a story for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Did John agree?
He did. He did. He said it was one of his favorite moments of the night. So
And I think one small reason he's kind of off my ballot as well, because I'm sorry, no one attacks Elmo.
oh.
Oh,
When he went
Wow.
after Elmo on Today's Show, just like, you bastard.
he's a curmudgeon. You gotta
Yeah.
love a. You gotta love an old
It's freaking
curmudgeon.
Elmo. You do not attack a Muppet. It's illegal to attack a Muppet. Or at least it should be.
Unless it's from season 1 of SNL, then you can attack them up. It's all you want. So yeah, that's a great pick, Thomas. We have our first real difference in opinion here. I think I'm going to throw a name out there, and I want to throw a name that a lot of people aren't going to know, but I know Thomas and I talked about it before. But he's so essential to the history of the show. Was there at the beginning, had a lot to do with the makeup of Weekend Update. And of course, I'm talking about Herb Sargent. And this is somebody who was the adult in the room, as they like to say, had the whole concept of Weekend Update in his mind, came back and was a part of the show when Lauren came back up until season 20, I believe, and also coined the phrase "not ready for primetime players." So two things that are still in the vernacular today, 50 years later, just from this genius who had started on the Carson show and was a true professional. He had a lot to do with the beginning days of SNL and a lot of the great stuff that we saw on Weekend Update. Thomas, is that somebody that would be on your ballot?
I would still be wrestling with that. I know he was important. I talked about Rosie adding a voice that was necessary from like a woman's perspective. I think Herb, as you mentioned, being the adult in the room, was pretty huge. He believed in the concept, obviously, because since he was such a seasoned writer, he took a pay cut. Took quite a bit of a pay cut to he didn't charge his normal fee to go help Lorne get SNL up and running, to be that kind of steady hand. So he really believed in the idea and saw it through and helped get season 1 on stable ground. I know he was involved in Weekend Update. I would love to know and it's hard, especially with the writers back then, because you don't know totally what they had a hand in, or what their thumbprints were on. So that's where I struggle a little bit with Herb. And I'm not, like, as you maybe might find out tonight, I'm not one to put somebody in the hall just because they were there at the beginning, or they were there first, or I want some sort of track record or some sort of resume. Show me some sketches, show me something, so I don't know yet. I'm leaning no, but I had a wonderful conversation with John Schneider a few seasons back, and I learned a lot about Herb. But he's still a hard maybe for me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think he, besides Bell throwing one-liners to Chevy, he is basically was writing most of the jokes about Update. He was down in the lobby of 30 Rock reading 30 papers on a Saturday morning to see what he was going to put in the show that night. A concept that just people wouldn't be able to grasp today. What do you mean you're not Googling
Papers.
it? What? So, Deej, would Herb Sargent be on your ballot?
He is not. Again, anyone who's on my ballot is not because they aren't important, not because they're talented. It's just there's certain other people that speak more to me. And very much like Thomas said, you don't want to nominate someone just for the fact that they're in the first season. But there's just other, like, I was very sad when I found out that Paula Pell wasn't on the ballot anymore. And yes, I do tend to champion more female writers, but I don't deny his importance to SNL, but just not really at the top of my list.
No, and that's fair. I mean, he was on the show until season 20, but I do get where both of you are coming from. So, yeah, it's a name that's almost lost to time. And as Thomas said, I mean, there's so much struggle with finding out who wrote everything back in those days, where today we know almost immediately. So it is difficult to kind of give proper credence to everybody as far as that goes. But yeah,
That might
so I
not be
guess
fair, but that's what we have to work with at the same time, I suppose.
I mean it's like 1800s baseball, right, Thomas? Like
Right.
did he really hit 78 home runs in 6 games? Like that's.
Was Pud Galvin really that great of a pitcher? I don't know.
Oh, I love a Pud Galvin reference. There
I
you go.
figured you would, my man.
And I have to think I have excellent Google Foo, but even my Google Foo talents cannot really dig up a lot of specific information.
Yeah, for sure. So Deej, who would you like to bring up next?
Okay, so whenever I think of Vanessa Bayer, I in turn think of Karen Killam because I wish he was on for the full 7, but for whatever reasons he was let go. But things like Jebediah Atkinson, he was also part of the duo that did J-Pop America Fun Time Now. He's a fantastic singer who is actually doing some really nice stuff on Broadway. He recently played. Did King George and Hamilton and revival of Spamalot, but he added a lot of musicality to the show. There's one particular moment of his that just impressed the heck out of me. It's a sketch where Jason Sudeikis is a coroner, and Bill's the doctor. He's the police officer. Bill's the coroner, and Taryn is the body on the table. And Jeremy Renner's there to identify the body. And there's one point in that where Bill Hader basically wipes his nose, and then he starts wiping it on Taryn and doing like drumming on him and everything. He did not flinch once. So it was like I don't know if that was Bill just being a little stinker. Probably was, but he just does not flinch that entire time. So that takes definitely a lot of control. Jebediah Atkinson is definitely the most favorite thing I've done. The whole next, I just wish he did that a bit more. It's just the. And I believe he was also one of the people behind Les Jeunes de Paris, which I don't completely understand as a sketch. It took me a few viewings to really appreciate what it is. It's just a little things they keep adding in, very similar to What Up With That, where you have this person coming in and this person coming in, and there's the interactions between everybody and the choreography. And I really wish he was still with the show. Because when he got let go after season 6, through the very I don't know the exact circumstances. I believe he talked about it on Fly on the Wall recently, if I remember correctly. But he's just I'm a musical theater nerd as well, so his voice is absolutely wonderful. He got this one part as the pizza rat in the 50th, so Taran Killam is definitely coming at the same time with Vanessa, so there's all the transitional period with Bill Fred and Jason leaving. So, but he has to be up there because he's just so talented.
Yeah, Taran, he's a really interesting. I think we'll say this a lot. Underrated because I think he kind of gets lost in the crowd. He comes in right after that third golden era, and he's the everyman. He's doing all the heavy lifting in a lot of different sketches. Underrated impressionist too. Christoph Waltz, I love his.
Yeah.
And he also plays Hitler and Trump. So take that for whatever it's worth. But yeah,
Casual Hilster. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so 7 seasons or 6 seasons, excuse me. And he moved up to 20% last year. Got a long way to go, Thomas. Do you think there's any chance? And is he on your ballot?
I don't really see him getting in. He was a hard no for me, not because he was he's like not talented. But honestly, the last few weeks I've done some reassessing on Taran. Thanks to Mike Murray, I realized that there were a couple seasons that Taryn led the cast in appearances, in sketches, and those weren't terrible seasons. Those were somewhat rebuilding seasons, but those weren't like the lower dregs of seasons that Taryn was leading the cast and sketches in. So he was featured prominently, as you mentioned. Like, I always remember his Brad Pitt
Yeah.
impression, that was so great. The way he contorted his body and his physical movements. If you remember that Maryville Trolley sketch,
Oh
he was he
yes,
was able to keep
yes.
up with like Jim Carrey, who's like one of the masters at doing stuff like that. So Taryn fit right in there. The Jebediah Atkinson to me is like at least a Hall of Fame Weekend Update
Yeah.
character, I think. So the more you dig into Taryn's resume, which I did, but you do so much of these episodes and you talk to so many people and talk about SNL so much that maybe I kind of like lost the part of my brain that was storing my Taran Killam knowledge after I talked to Kirsten Raiola about him. But reassessing, I think he has a strong case. He's another one where right now he's on the outside looking in for me, but that's not to say before the deadline that he might not get in.
Yeah, if this was any other year and we were talking about our 15 picks, he would be right on that outside edge for me as well. I'm highly considering him. There's definitely other cast members on this list that
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure get in. But again, since there's no limits, that's not really an issue. Just want to make sure he's worthy, and I think he probably is. Thomas, where would you like to go?
Yeah, I'll go to another cast member who I think has been lost to time in SNL history. This cast member was arguably the co-star of their seasons, and for some reason over the years has just been lost to history. I'm talking about Sherry O'Terry. And if you're around seasons 20 through whenever she was on, late 90s, into 2000, she and Will Ferrell were the stars of that show. And I know, we look at Molly Shannon now, we look at Anna Gasteyer now, and a lot of, Tracy Morgan and a lot of stars from that era, but it was the Will and Sherry show from around that time. So of course, they were both in cheerleaders. They both did Morning Latte, which is an underrated sort of recurring sketch from that time period. Sherry has one of my favorite all-time impressions. Her Barbara Walters was just so perfect. But she just hasn't been back to the show since she left. So I think she's just like, SNL fans don't really see her as part of the family because she's just not back. Whereas you can see Rachel Dratch or Anna or Tracy or any number of cast members from around that time period and say they're SNL family. People don't look at Sherry O'Terry that way. But if you were living it around that time, and I know both of you probably can attest, it was Sherry O'Terry, it was Will Ferrell for that cast. And I think her resume backs it up, her talent backs it up. And I think Sherry O'Terry, I don't want her lost in SNL history just because she's not a quote unquote friend of the show at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Thomas. And it really is sad that it is almost a way that you see that with a lot of cast members. Not to put her anywhere near the level of Jan Hooks, but Jan had the same issue after she stopped showing up in
Yeah.
'94. We didn't see her on the show for the next 20 years, except for the anniversary show, and she's gotten lost to time too. But yeah, Sherry was. I mean, it was Will and Sherry. I mean, Molly is now because she's hosted, because she's still out there doing delicious dish commercials, and good on her. Like she's fantastic and well deserving of everything she's gotten. But yeah, Sherry is somebody who, if she had come back and host in season 32 or something like that, and we got to see her play with other people, it probably would have helped her case. She's definitely on my ballot. Deej, is she on yours?
She's not. There's certain other cast members I've just connected more with. This is also part of the time when I wasn't watching a lot of SNL. Of course, I've caught up since then with stuff I needed and all that. She definitely threw herself into her work. I mean, one of the big things is commit to the bit, and that she definitely did. So I admire her for her talent, what she is, but there's just other people that I have a closer comedic connection to. And the fact that she hasn't been back to host it, see, that I don't even take into account, because people have their lives and they have to go on and do what's best for them. So I don't, if anyone hasn't been back to host or been back for whatever, I will not count that against anyone, because, people's have lives, have priorities. And I guess after SNL, she was done with SNL, it just wasn't a priority for her, which is great, which is fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's fair. I think you say the same thing in sports, Thomas, right? Where, if they don't come back for Old Timers Day or don't become a manager or something
Right.
like that, they almost get lost. And oh, that's right. That guy played for 5 years and he was fantastic. It's kind of the same thing with Sherry. As you said, like so much of that cast has gone on to do other things, and we've seen them in more recent times. I mean, she hasn't really been in anything really outside of
She
Scary
was in a
Movie.
she was in a Curb episode.
Right. Yes, but that was early on too,
Yeah,
right?
that was early on. Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about underrated female cast members, I'm going to bring up someone that I want to make sure gets mentioned. Uh, was an original, not ready for primetime player, one of my favorites of all time, and had one of the most beautiful moments on SNL 50 in February. Lorraine Newman is somebody who, for the longest time, did not get mentioned with all the big names. As you said, Deej, like that should not be held against people. Everybody went on to movie careers except for Lorraine and Garrett. Jane had a sitcom. So she kind of get lost in the mix as all these other people went on to become more and more famous. But she's been the heartbeat of the original cast for a while now. Danny Aykroyd was that for a long time, would come back to the show, things like that. She was in the 40th doing her Sherry. She came back and did that wonderful pre-tape with Pete Davidson in SNL 50, and was out there stumping for the history of the show, had her own Audible book. So Lorraine Newman is somebody who I'm so happy it has finally started to get her flowers, as the kids like to say. Thomas, is Lorraine on your ballot?
Unfortunately, she's not on my ballot, and I kind of alluded to that earlier when we were talking about Herb Sargent. And rewatching the first 5 seasons and stuff, and a lot of it might not totally be her fault, but she just doesn't make the imprint on those shows. And for me, in my opinion, that's Hall of Fame caliber. I love that she has taken up the mantle of people from the first 5 seasons as far as like being a friend of the show. And I see her on Twitter. Lorraine's on Twitter, just like gushing over the current cast and the show. So she's like a fan, like she watches the show currently. She's not one of those grumpy like you see in sports, like the ex NBA players who are like, oh, back in my day it was better. No, Lorraine like praises current SNL and the cast members, and it was really cool to see her and Pete in a sketch together. Like, just as an SNL geek, like I love seeing Lorraine and Pete in a sketch together. So I agree that she's such a great ambassador for the show. I do like a lot of the stuff that she did do on SNL, but I just don't think, like, for me, the imprint wasn't quite Hall of Fame worthy to be on my ballot.
Breaking my heart, Thomas.
I know.
Deej, is Lorraine on your ballot?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to join in the heartbreaking session. I'm so sorry, Bill. I don't mean to hurt you. I love you. I respect you. Yeah, with the things she did on the show, Coneheads definitely was one of the biggest things she's best known for. And just a one-line reading of, "That's great, bass." But yeah, I guess again, I've tried to review some of the earlier episodes and just to remind myself of some of the stuff that they did back then, and it's just that someone like Gilda and Jane Curtin made a bit more of an impact on me, comedy wise, than Lorraine did. But she is gorgeous, and what she did with that pre-tape, I was crying at the end. because it's just that she's still a champion for the show, but it's just not one I made as much of a connection with.
That's fine. You can both disagree with me. Well, that's the show, everybody. Thanks for coming.
No plugs? What's going on, Bill?
No. Go read Lorraine's book. No, I understand.
On my Audible list.
Listen, this is she admits fully. Not only was she having problems with drugs, problems with eating disorders, but she was very adamant against recurring characters. And as soon as the show became about that, she was kind of left in the dust. And it's, it is a shame to see, but there are a lot of hidden gems out there with Lorraine. I think when you go back and watch, I'm watching the original 5 again right now, and she is just charming. Does it make her Hall of Fame worthy? Well, we'll have to see what the voters say, if they're on my side or not. But Deej, how about you? Who would you like to nominate? Give me a writer or a host if you don't mind.
Okay, now is John Mulaney still in as a writer or a host?
He's on as a writer. Yeah.
Okay, so I can't mention that one. Okay, Ann Beats, another one of the female pioneers of SNL. Worked a lot with Rosie, and she was basically deep in the trenches, trying to get things on with people who just didn't think that would have that long-standing bullshit of women aren't funny. I'm sorry, women are freaking hilarious. It's just that misogynistic thing just really bugs me. But no, she was her and Rosie were like deep in the trenches of the early seasons and just trying to help establish the show, make sure there was a female voice on the show. She also went on to do the create the show Square Pegs, which unfortunately only lasted one season, but was still a big part of my 80s childhood. So with both of them, with Rosie and Ann Beats, I'm glad I got a chance to put her in, because she just it's just there's a lot of great women who have written for the show past then, but they're the two that were an island unto themselves among everyone else. So they had to fight a lot for what they got on. And what they got on was absolutely great. So I'm glad that she is definitely part of SNL's legacy. And for the writers, I definitely believe that she does live in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I had a great conversation with James Stevens about her this year on the Hall of Fame, and it's hard to describe to people today. Obviously, we still have a long way to go with misogyny and making everyone get an equal chance, regardless of race, gender. But the 70s, I mean, it was terrible. Every sitcom, every drama, every comedy show was a bunch of old white guys, and the SNL was one of the first times that there was a chance for women to do something, and they still got overlooked. Belushi wouldn't do anything, as you said, that had Rosie's name on it, and he famously would not be in hard hats because he knew it was going to make him, look lesser of a man. Luckily, we've come a little further than that these days, but Ann was right there in the front lines. Had so many great sketches. I love Colleen Furman, Gilda's underrated character. She doesn't speak most of the time. She's kind of got the glaze look in her eyes, looking off into space, and she did that a bunch of times. Of course, she had a big part in the Nerds as well. Thomas, is Ann Beats on your list?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you put Rosie Schuster in, I think Ann Beats is right up there for similar reasons. But what I like about Ann, you could see the imprint that she had as far as she wasn't afraid to be edgy too. She wasn't afraid to really push boundaries. I think probably the chief example, your mileage may vary, but Uncle Roy is one of the main examples of this. And I've heard her talk about it, and she's, she doesn't apologize for it, nor should she. It was her brainchild and stuff. And if you understand the reasoning behind the Uncle Roy sketch, it really pushed boundaries. They put a button on that sketch. They kind of ended the narrative, and I think a pretty decent way, a pretty palatable way. But she did have that sensibility, and you also had to have that sensibility if you were to date and be around Michael O'Donoghue all the time. right? You had to have a thick skin and kind of think along that same wavelength, like Anne. So I think her voice was super important in those years, along with Rosie's. As well, and Marilyn Suzanne Miller. I think it was great that SNL gave some room. It wasn't ideal, but in perspective, compared to everything else that was going on at the time, save for like the Carol Burnett show, I think SNL, it was nice to see them give Rosie and Anne a little bit of room to work there.
Yeah, at that time, sorry.
No.
At the time, the Equal Rights Amendment was in debate.
Yes.
Of course, with Ms. Magazine and Gloria Steinem, and a lot of then you had other people fighting against that. So there's a lot of women at that time were trying to get themselves more represented. And
Yeah,
it's still a fight to this day.
Yeah,
Sure.
they famously covered the Equal Rights Amendment on Weekend Update. Like they focused a lot on that during a lot of Weekend Update bits.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And had that dark sense of humor, just like O'Donoghue, and they probably rubbed off on each other. She had some great National Lampoon pieces before she came to SNL. So if you can find them on eBay, I highly recommend going out and getting some of those. Some of them probably don't age too well, but she always had that dark humor inside of her.
That's fine. Was it Natasha Lyonne who played her in A Stupid and Futile Gesture?
Yes.
She played Anne Beats, right? To me, that was fitting. I think that was great casting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you're a sketch comedy fan, that movie is just, you need to go watch it.
So good. Yeah.
Got Doug Kenney. Will Forte plays Doug Kenney. Yeah, but I think that was not Natasha Lyonne. I think you played Anne Beats.
That's the way to go. Thomas, who do you have next up on your list?
I want to talk about a musical guest. And I almost did a thing where I punished every other musical guest for the sins of the voters, because I was pushing for Dave Grohl for seasons on end, right? For his work with Nirvana, Foo Fighters, with Neil Young, them Crooked Vultures. Dave Grohl, to me, was like, if there was one musical guest that was an SNL Hall of Famer, it was Dave Grohl. He didn't get in, right? So then I was thinking to myself, like, I'm just going to punish every musical guest, because if Dave Grohl doesn't get in, nobody should. But I want to talk about Aerosmith. And of course, it was one that I was on with you, Bill, this season, along with the Larry David episode. But they provided, few musical guests have the memorable moment. And if you're a musical guest, I think those isolated moments are even more important, right? Because you only have so many opportunities to make an impression. And Aerosmith made an impression on the show before they even performed one song on the show. They came on, and they were on Wayne's World. Wayne and Garth always talked about them, so that was a huge get. And then Aerosmith came on, and not only did the Wayne's World sketch, but then just kicked ass on stage in 8H. And they were dependable whenever they were on the show. They're part of kind of the fabric of the show, right? Like Aerosmith seems to be, they were in the Wayne's World movie. They're a big part in Wayne's World 2. So I think they did enough, and I do highly value those isolated big moments. And Aerosmith had that. So I want to just bring up the notion of putting Aerosmith in the SNL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I love that. That was a great conversation, getting to talk about them with you. I'm a hard rock, heavy metal head in my soul. So getting to talk about a rock band, as we said when we talked, so undervalued on SNL, especially at that time, and to have them come in right as they were getting super hot. I mean, maybe about 3 or 4 years after. Obviously, they weren't there in the 70s when they could have been, when they were starting to grow. But coming in and their resurgence, as you said, that Wayne's World is an all-timer. And I don't know if they're on my ballot, because the musical guest is tough. And
it's tough.
Thomas, while we're talking about it, why do you think musical guests are so hard? Now, when all these documentaries came out for SNL 50, the one I hear the most about is the one about music.
Right.
So why can't anybody but Paul Simon get into the Hall of Fame? It's crazy.
Because I think people look at SNL first and foremost as a comedy show, and then
Yeah.
like, your musical guest who has hosted a bunch and in a bunch of sketches, and people know you as like a host. Then I think they just look at like the music on my comedy show is just kind of a necessary part of it.
Right.
But SNL obviously looks at it as much more than that.
Sure.
They had a whole Radio City Music Hall music celebration. They had a whole documentary about it. But I think people just look at it as a sketch comedy show first
Yeah.
and foremost, and not the variety show that it was conceived as. And I think that's such a disadvantage for them. And Dave Grohl was in sketches too. What the hell?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
They just never hosted. I think that's a huge thing. Is the musical guest probably has to host to be given a
Probably.
good shot.
3 words: wedding, party, band.
Yes, right, for Dave
Right,
Grohl,
right.
exactly.
And there was a question discussing that in one of the shows I was binging, and yes, Bill was actually playing bass. He used to play bass when he was a teenager, but anytime he's done bass with anything he's done with that and documented now, he is playing.
Brought to you by the folks at We Heart Hater.
Yes,
Awesome.
sorry.
That's what you'll get. No, that's great.
No, don't apologize. Thomas plugs his podcast constantly.
I plug Pop Culture 5 all the time, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Podcast Addict.
Well,
Right,
Bill did play Steven Tyler once.
So, are you saying that Aerosmith is on your ballot, Deej?
Well, they're not on my ballots, but I've always been a fan. Steve Tyler is like a personality to be reckoned with. He always throws himself into everything, and just the musicianship of everyone in the band. A lot of the classic songs. The one particular one of theirs was was "Walk This Way" when they did it with Run DMC. Is forever on my playlist because it's just a wonderful melding of the two, mashup of the two styles, and that he did his big part of Wayne's World and doing the Wayne's World sketch. And yeah, it's hard to connect with a lot of the musical guests because sometimes the musical guests are only on like one and done. Some musical guests you never see again. So there are some repeat people that comes back. Paul Simon, of course, is a category all on his own. But they just don't. A lot of the musical guests that come on are basically just the hit of the day, like with stuff like Musical Youth and things like that. So, someone like a Lady Gaga or Justin Timberlake, they have made a lot more appearances both as musical guests and as actually hosting the show. So, it's a really hard thing to kind of substantiate.
I wish there was a season 8 of SNL Hall of Fame so we could continue this musical guest conversation when we talk about Morgan Wallen on the ballot. So I think no.
That's when I hand my resignation. Yeah, I don't know if I could vote for anybody until Boz Scaggs gets in. So I don't know.
How dare you?
I love Boz.
Okay.
I love Boz. I'm not one of those not ready for prime time guys.
Okay. Justice for Boz. Boz buds unite.
On that note, Deej, who would you like to bring up next?
Okay. While we're in the subject of music, Fred Armisen. Why is he not in the Hall of Fame? Why? I mean, he was on for a lot of years. He's a multi-talented musician, linguist, extremely creative. The people that he worked with on SNL, with Seth and Bill and Jason and everybody there, how he carried on transition from one cast to the other, and contributes so much musically, especially when it was at the 50th. He got to play drums with Devo, and I was a big fan of Devo back in the day. After the 50th, I actually loaded up a Devo playlist of all the songs I forgot about. And he's just a great combination of funny and musically talented. That he brought so much music to the show. For instance, the one they did at the end towards the end of his run, the history of punk, and Ian Rubbish, who was of course the punk rocker who actually liked Margaret Thatcher, and it was because of that led to the creation of Documentary Now. And with Documentary Now, he's written like 2 whole albums worth of songs for both Blue Jean Committee and and test pattern and things he did for the show. Then, of course, it's time. Just the one smiling thing in the back with "What's Up with Bats." I loved him doing Patterson on updates because he was never making the fact of the funny. I know a lot of people were kind of offended by that, but now I grew up with a father who was also blind, and my sister is also blind as well. And if anything, a lot of people do have just a sense of humor about it. They have their down moments, sure, but and when Patterson actually came on the show and they're doing the wandering around bits, I mean, if the guy he's imitating can have a sense of humor about it, then I think the rest of us should too. The only one thing I never liked really was Nicholas Fane. It's not one of my favorite bits of his. But there's just so much he's contributed to the show with all the people he's got to work with and with the music. And it's just, he should be back. He should be on the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I tend to agree. 11 seasons is nothing to sneeze at, and I know that Victor mentions it in the chat. Like there was some trepidation about his last few years, and he kind of went the Daryl Hammond route and wasn't doing as much. But I love the Patterson impression is one of my favorite of the last 15, 20 years for sure. When he'd walk into the camera or have the conversation right next to the camera as they were trying to continue an update.
Of course, the New Jersey.
New Jersey. When I drive into New Jersey, I still say it that way because of Fred. So yeah, I mean it's a little concerning. Last year he had a high of 59% in season 5, down to 46% last year. But maybe with some of the bigger names off of the ballot and with an open ballot, he'll have a chance. Thomas, is he on your ballot?
Yeah, I think he's going to get in. I kind of do, especially with this new voting. It won't be because of me, though. He's not on my ballot. And Bill, I'm going to appeal to your baseball sensibilities again. He's kind of like a Cecil Fielder. Great home run hitter, amazing power hitter. He like 50 home runs when not a lot of people were doing that. But there was just so many holes in his game. Struck out a lot. I looked at Fred like that. Like, man, on paper, I love Fred. Super talented, but there was just so much of what he did that just like baffled me, that I like maybe actively didn't like. Regine, stuff like that. Stuff like Regine, stuff like the court reporter person, Noonie. Like, I don't know. Just I didn't connect with so much of his work, and a lot of it was really good, but not enough to me, it was an uneven, like a talented, really uneven. Maybe didn't get the most to me out of that talent on SNL. I love Portlandia. Like, I was a faithful watcher of Portlandia. I love Fred. But to me, just his work didn't always click for me on SNL, and he misses my cut.
In defense of Regine, the part of the bit was, it took me a while to really catch on to it, but it's not so much that she's Regine, it's just there's many people I've known in my life who are just so pretentious. And they think they know it all, but they really don't. And so it's just poking fun of that one person who went to know that article, and they're talking about what article? It's like she just, or the other one was, well, if I wanted that, I would have told you so, or something like that. So it was just a play on. I didn't necessarily like the whole, well, watch when I touch the thing here, but mostly it was just the notion of trying to go through evening with friends with someone who's just completely insufferable.
See, on paper, that doesn't sound like a bad idea on paper, but then I watched the sketch, and it just didn't really hit with me.
Thomas coming in with the hard line here. It's really
somebody has to.
Right? I mean, I could have put all 39 in, Thomas. I'm revealing my ballot. Everybody
have to have standards somewhere.
So even though he did Best Friends with your girl Vanessa, that's not enough to put him over the top for you.
Did you notice how Best Friends wasn't among the litany of things that I listed?
I did.
With Vanessa. I'm just saying. Not a bad bit, but not like, I don't know. I wish they would have done something else for SNL 50, Vanessa, other than Best Friends. But even though I did enjoy it, the Lauren stuff. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I like Fred. Seems like a nice guy.
He was great in the Vincent Price sketches.
He was good in the Vincent Price sketches.
He's good in Vincent Price. Howie Mandel when he's
Well-
standing off stage waiting for Regis to die.
The sketch that you brought up, Deej, what the wedding band.
Yes.
I love Fred in that. That
Yeah.
is classic. Yeah.
And that song is on Spotify.
Oh, really?
Fist fight in the parking lot.
And it was actually used in an episode of Ted Lasso, which I thought was really cute, really awesome.
Well, Thomas, I'm afraid to go to you because it sounds like
man.
you have no one else left on your ballot. It's not. You're being one of these hardline, small ball guys.
Well, let me pull you back in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna pull you back in with John Lovitz.
Okay. All right.
Okay, see, look at Bill. Okay,
you got me.
Okay, yeah. So John Lovitz, he was one of the ones. Of course, we all know Nora, Dennis Miller were saved from that disastrous first season. Lauren coming back, they were saved from the fire, and for good reason. They knew Lovitz was the one that was hitting in an otherwise terrible season, and he parlayed that into yes, Victor Higgins, rest in peace, John Lovitz. He parlayed. He was able to show that he was like the best thing going basically in season 11, and he parlayed that into showing that he could work with like Dana, Phil Hartman, Kevin Nealon, Jan Hooks, all of those people, and he had some amazing like Tommy Flanagan, Master Thespian, his Michael Dukakis. He played Dukakis in what I think is the best political thing that SNL ever did. Was the Bush Dukakis '88. I think that's the best thing SNL ever did politically, and Lovitz was front and center in that. You want to talk one-offs? The Nude Talk Show was one of the like great like narratively. Lovitz played it perfectly as this earnest like well-meaning, really earnest guy who has this great idea for a talk show where they sit around in the nude and just chat. Let's chat about things, and it was just this like good-hearted guy who earnestly wanted to do this show. Lovitz played those so well. Pablo Picasso, it's another weird, funny sketch that he did. Mephistopheles, I don't know. I could go on and on. Lovitz is beloved, I think, in SNL circles. Was a great, not that this counts, he hosted a really great show when he came back to host. So John Lovitz, I brought Bill back on my side.
You pulled me in, John. I just got to see him last Friday. Sat second row at his show. He doesn't do a lot of SNL. If you've seen his show, it's very blue. It's very not what you think. He's not going to sit up there and do Master Thespian for you, and I didn't think he was. But he does mention a few things. He mentions the penis sketch. He mentions the liar. Actually plays a clip of Trump talking about the January 6th insurrection, and Trump had said, she's a liar, just like, remember John Lovitz? And Lovitz is like, why am I involved in this now? But yeah, he's one of my first. He was in my cast, and just underrated, maybe not. I don't know. By the time everybody else comes in, he kind of falls behind Dana and Jan and Phil.
Sure.
And even Kevin at points. And so you don't see as much of him. He's not dominating the show as much as he did in season 11 when he had to. But yeah, he is an all-timer for me and absolutely on my ballot. Deej, is he on yours?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, 100%. Boom stamp, classic cast member to quote the...
See, we're all friends again.
Exactly. We can find common ground once again. But of the people who have played the devil on SNL, he is definitely my first favorite. The second one being Jason Sudeikis, when he did him on Update quite a bit. Tommy Flanagan was absolute. I just love the cadence that he put into it, and just how it. And of course, the recurring bit of Morgan Fairchild, yes, and the Master Thespian bit he did with John Lithgow. And I've known some actors like that. Like, acting genius, thank you. It's just there's something very 1940s black and white to him, which is a nice little. There's a lot of great comedies from that era, and he definitely was again, brings his whole heart into it. And just last year, I discovered that his animated series, The Critic, was on Tubi. So I've rewatched that a few times. And he's just...
How is it, Deej?
I watched it when it was first run back in the day. When I saw that The Critic was back on Tubi, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta watch that again. And it still holds up.
I was trying to tee you up. How was it, Bill?
Yes, it was very good. It stinks.
Thank you. Love The Critic.
Yeah, but
I just watched it on Tubi too, so I know.
And I'm also a sucker for a really great speaking voice, and he definitely has one of those.
Yes. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. Yeah. So love it. We're all back together, as Thomas said, so we can unite. Let's find somebody who will not unite us. Now, I want to bring up a host, and I think there's a few hosts on this list that might have put themselves over the top this year. You know, there's 3 in particular that hosted in season 50 that are on the ballot this year. The one I want to mention is Jack Black, who when we got to talk about him, I talked with Darren about Jack Black, and it's an all-time classic episode that he hosted back in season 31, I believe, and with the Christmas episode. And it's we got Lazy Sunday, we got other stuff going on that has nothing to do with him, but he's also very good. The Sabaro sketches in that. He brings a different kind of energy, a host that has a stamp on exactly who they are when they come in and host. And when he came back at 50, I think that was one of the best episodes of this past season. With the energy that he brought, we got some really good sketches. He hadn't been back to the show in 19 years, so it was just so fantastic to see somebody who inexplicably disappeared from SNL, even though he was still in the zeitgeist. So I'm going to put Jack Black on my ballot. Thomas, would you have him on yours?
He's not on my ballot. I love Jack Black, though. A super fun episode this season. I agree with you. That was such a fun episode. He hosted an all-timer of an episode, but as you pointed out, like, it wasn't totally because of him. Like he wasn't in Lazy Sunday. He didn't have anything to do with Christmas Time for the Jews, which was great from that episode. He was the button on the Spelling Bee sketch. He and Kyle were the button on the Spelling Bee sketch. They did have the Sabaro sketch, but other than that, like, it kind of reminded me, he was a better host. But in the early 90s, Linda Hamilton hosted like a classic episode, but it wasn't really because of Linda Hamilton. And sometimes that happens. And Jack Black is a better sketch performer than like Linda Hamilton and was more memorable. But it's similar in that regard. But he did a lot of stuff that I really liked. The Base Off, I forget which time hosting that was, but that was a whole long strung out thing. The Base Off was great. Seems like he has to perform like Jack Black. He can get something music related. I love watching Jack Black. Just like a Hall of Very Good kind of host to me, not quite a Hall of Famer.
So if he comes back for a 5th time next year, since they're desperate for 5-timers now, would that put it over for you if it's an all-time episode?
Maybe. Then I'll have to go hack into the mainframe of SNL Hall of Fame and go change my vote.
Yes. And only here could you get a Jack Black, Linda Hamilton comp. Deej, is Jack Black on your ballot?
He wasn't until fairly recently. I don't have the list I sent you, but I've been thinking about some other things and reevaluating. And I will say I have had a crush on Jack Black for a while now. He has the most gorgeous eyes. I know he's a lot.
We all have a crush on Jack Black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing he did in that episode was Appalachian. He did Appalachian Emergency Room.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to bring Bill Hader into this, I swear. So let's move on.
If he's relevant, please.
I just don't want to get too annoying with that. It's just that one of the behind the scenes stories is just before he was supposed to go on with Jason for Appalachian Emergency Room, he got a blinding migraine. But he still went on stage. He did his line. Jason was escorting him on and off, and that was pretty much him for his night till the good nights we did on the ice rink. Now, his most recent one, which is where the base off is from, Goth Kid on Vacation, lives rent free in my head. If for some reason it comes up in any kind of feed, it's one of those ones I'm compelled. I have to watch this again because I love Longfellow. I'm a big proponent of Longfellow there, and his performance in doing the Black Parade, uh, the variation, which unfortunately will keep the whole thing off of Spotify, but that he brought us that gift that was Garfield on Vacation was just fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and that goes to my point, and that's a perfect one to use because I think Goth Kid on Vacation is very good. Jack Black makes it incredibly great. When they cut to him doing Black Parade, it was phenomenal. And Thomas, I think you're underselling. I know the great Will Forte is the big part of Spelling Bee, but without that button, as you said, I, that brings it to an all-time sketch right there. That's in the
It puts it
pantheon.
over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Will Forte is like 83% of why it's there, and then Jack and Kyle are another 17%, or no, 15%, and then Chris Parnell is like the other 2%, I think.
Where does Linda
maybe
Hamilton
even
fit
more.
into that?
For hosting an all-time episode, she gets at least a 0.00005 for every subsequent episode in SNL history.
She's still getting residuals. Okay.
She gets residuals for that.
Deej, let's go back to you. Who do you have next on your list?
Okay, next I have is little baby 80 Bryant, absolute sweetheart, incredibly talented, and as a woman of substance, shall we say, I appreciate all the kind of things that she able to do on the show and her subsequent series, which was quite a lot about fighting with diet and body positivity and all that. But she is very versatile. She is also the one that brought us the wonder that is Jean, who seems to be a recurring character in a lot of the musical pre-tapes. First, like she was the Jean was the mom in Crucible Cast Party. Of course, I love Do It in Your Twin Bed, and the other one was
Little
Backyard,
Baby 80.
Yeah, Backyard Ballers, and I think it was, I can't remember, was it when Lizzo was on the show, or was it? Oh, it was Cardi B, where she was doing the whole being Little Baby 80 because Cardi B was on the show and trying to connect with her. And she just she's a really positive presence on the show. She worked very well with Kate McKinnon. There was the sister sketches that she did quite a bit. When we've had a mistake. I thought it was a pashmina.
Yes.
And there's a one time when she played a chicken, but a very sweet, lovable chicken who's just connecting with, I guess, the farmer. And it's just the different things she will give herself into. I remember one story that she told was one of the first times she was doing a cold open, and she was a moderator for a debate. And after that, they did when she did Live from New York Saturday Night. She was going down the hall with a bunch of the other new cast members, that was congratulating her on that. And just the way she was reacting towards the meat thing on update is she is just definitely one of the ladies that definitely belongs in the Hall of Fame. And it was very sad when she left, but I understand that sometimes there, like everyone says, there is a time that you will leave SNL, and that was just the time that she went to. And she's also hosted the Independent Spirit Awards the last 2 years, and she's really great with that. So this is why I would really love to see her back as a host, because I've seen what she's done with those award shows, and she would be perfect as a host.
Yeah, 100%. Thomas, I know one of the conversations that happens a lot with, Kate not getting in on her first time, 80 not getting in on her first time last year, is kind of irrelevant now because the Hall of Fame is closing up. But the recency bias and not wanting to jump the gun, do you think 80 is deserving? And do you think there's any recency bias going on there?
Yeah, I think 80's deserving. She's on my ballot. I do have a weird feeling that people will still have recency bias against her, maybe against Cecily, though Cecily might be more of a sure thing than 80 in the Hall of Fame. Hey, I mean, that's what we're doing. We're comparing people, but I guess, Kate, 80 and Cecily were synonymous. I think probably Cecily has more of an argument for the Hall of Fame than 80, but I think 80's a Hall of Famer as well. But I do think the recency might hurt her a little bit because we just don't see if it's happening right in front of our eyes in real time or if it happened a year or two ago. It's hard for people to put that in historical context. So I think people need time away. I hope that doesn't happen to 80 because she's a Hall of Famer to me. Like I know Victor said Jan Krang. Like that's as soon as I hear 80, I hear that her saying that. The original Karen, one of the first Karens to be on SNL for sure. The little girl who stumbled on the porn set, the adult.
Love that one. Yes.
I love those. And then who I think might be the little girl's twin sister or cousin, Carrie Crum.
Mhm.
Doing weekend update bits. She a lot along with Vanessa Bayer, who we talked about Don Lazarus for Vanessa Bayer. 80 had a really great weekend update character to her very last gasp with the trend forecasters with Bo, and I thought that was really great. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she did turned something into that at a weird time to do impressions on SNL, political impressions especially.
She did Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz as well. Like she was able to kind of make hay of some stuff, some difficult assignments in that era. So I have 80 as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I do too. I there is something to the recency bias. I've said that I wouldn't really put somebody newish in on a first ballot, but I'm gonna have to break that rule here because as you said, Cecily, who we haven't even spoken of yet, but this and there is a splitting of the vote because it is the first time in the history of the show that 3 women dominate. You're not talking about any men. At this point in the show. For 10 years, Kate, 80, Cecily were this 3-headed funny machine.
Yeah.
And they all had their own angles on the show, and they were all really, really fantastic at what they did. So 80 is a definite for me as well, despite it being just a couple years ago.
One of my other favorite lines of hers is in when they're doing the apple farm. It's like, what are apples lack in flavor? It makes up for on the ground.
That's right. Thomas, who would you want to bring up next?
Yeah, well, let's go to a writer. And I think this person, I think he should have gotten in as a host. I think he's a host, Hall of Fame host worthy. But I want to talk about John Mulaney.
Yes.
Getting in as a writer. I think he worked with Bill Hader. I'll do your job here, Deej. He worked with Bill Hader, of course, and Stefan, the most beloved character probably in SNL history. Certainly the most beloved update character. That was Mulaney and Bill Hader. What's that name? Just incredible, incredible. One underrated one, and I was talking with Kirsten Royal as she was on my Mulaney episode. What's Wrong with Tanya is such a Mulaney. His fingerprints are all over that. That's so perfect. Taking like a kernel of something that happens in these Lifetime movies and turning it into this game show format. And that's such a great one-off sketch. One of my favorite sketches of the last few years, and any chance I get to talk about it, I will. Monkey Judge. That's when he was hosting, but that was a Mulaney written thing that he wanted to get on and didn't. Finally got it on when he was hosting, and I thought it was brilliant. That's such a writerly, wonderful sketch, that Monkey Judge sketch, and all those musicals we could talk about. But I think Mulaney, I think he's a Hall of Famer as a host and a writer. He's like Ohtani, man. Like he's a Hall of Famer in a couple of different ways, I think.
Yeah, it was really shocking to see that he didn't get in as host, and maybe that's the recency bias again. But I think with a host, you can almost throw that out the window if they do 4 or 5 really solid episodes. And yeah, everything you mentioned, he also had a part in Fart Face, which is something that we extol the virtues of constantly, that he wrote with Forte. I don't know how you can't have Mulaney in. He's probably the most important writer outside of, Che, Jost, Seth in the last 20 years. So, Deej, I assume he's on your ballot.
Yes, because he was. Well, again, Bill here was struggling the first couple years on the show, and once he came in, it connected with them because one of the stories that Bill has told, where they thought they're doing the Vincent Price Halloween sketch, and they said, "Hey, well, who's a writer with Steph?" And say, "Oh, let's bring the new guy in," and they're trying to come up with something for for Vincent to respond to Liberace, and he came up with the line is "Save your sassy asides for your windowless bars," which unfortunately did not get a laugh, which I was very disappointed with. And the history behind that is because around that time that these specials were, all of the gay bars had the windows blacked out to keep from getting raided. And what's that name? He brought us the wonder if it is Vince Blake. And of course, the successor with Longfellow, I thought was really good. One of the ones you don't see a lot because it's not online, but there was the celebrity edition done with Timberlake and Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
And that is, what's that name? They came up with the whole backstory that he's just this, it's not even an actual show. He just does some random millionaire wants to punish people for not knowing people's names. The other one from Tanya is, "Who's going to believe you?"
Yeah.
And then they go, "Oh, you may watch while pretending to rake leaves." I haven't watched a lot of Lifetime, but I know a lot of the tropes. And the musicals, for someone who actually doesn't sing, he actually put a lot towards a lot of musicals.
He has theater kid energy, to be sure.
Yes. He was also partly responsible for the Documentary Now episode in season 3, Co-op, which is a take on the recording of Company of that documentary. And he may not be able to sing, but he has definitely a lot of good musical knowledge. Of course, we all know his love for Steely Dan. But he was such a big influence then. He collaborated with a lot of people, and he's people he still collaborates with today. And even now, with how much he's overcome with the intervention and his drug addiction, and now that he's in a great happy place, he has 2 beautiful children. And I've been watching his. Tomorrow night is the last night of his latest Netflix series. And John
Is he gonna fight kids? I lost track of that. What's happening with that?
That is on the schedule. That he's supposed to fight
Okay.
2 teenage kids.
Okay, it's still on the schedule.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't seen the height line yet either. So do you know your age?
I saw the first kid, and I think that kid alone could kick Mulaney's ass.
Yeah. But he was just the influence he had with Diner Lobster and how that eventually got into that's in musicals. He's definitely a big legacy for the show.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see because in the history of the show, we've already talked about Larry David, but that was so many decades after he was on the show and all the other success he had. Obviously Tina Fey, but she was a cast member. Seth was a cast member. For him to come back the first time to host, there had to be people who were like, "Who's this guy?" Like
Right.
the guy who was on that failed sitcom with Elliot Gould and Martin Short. Like what? And because people outside of circles like us aren't always paying attention to the writers on the show, might not have known that he was writing Stefan. And he right out of the gates, he was amazing. I know I'm talking about his hosting gigs, but he was so important to the direction the show took in the early 10s. I can't say enough about Mulaney. Love the man. So
the best stand-ups. Best stand-up right now.
Absolutely. I'm going to nominate another writer, actually 2 writers, the writing team of Bonnie and Terry Turner. So talk about stuff that might be lost to time. They were so important to the show as it was finding its footing in the second golden era. They had met the amazing Jan Hooks on a show called Tush in their early 80s on TBS. If you don't know it, go look it up on YouTube. And see a young Jan with Bonnie and Terry on camera. And they kind of had that in the back of their head as they came to the show in 87 and started writing for Jan and started writing a lot of famous sketches that you know and love. Brenda the waitress, maybe Jan's most incredible role on the show. Took over from Rosie Schuster with Church Chat, took over Pat Stevens' show with Nora Dunn. And of course, they were the driving force behind Wayne's World, which became the biggest commercial success in the history of SNL. So I feel like they're a little bit forgotten, even though they went on and did, Third Rock from the Sun and things of that nature, that 70s show. But they were super, super important to that era of the show. Deej, are you a fan of Bonnie and Terry, and are they on your ballot?
They're not, just because I'm not too familiar with a lot of their SNL work. I'm very familiar with, of course, their post SNL period. But I will appreciate them for writing for Jan Hooks, because Jan Hooks is definitely a class, definitely in the SNL lexicon. The tribute that was shown when she passed, and I was big fan of Jan Hooks, so that the fact that they would help elevate her on the show, and also work with Nora Dunn, who really got a bad rap after the whole Andrew Dice Clay stuff. But I like that they can sort of take people and help just elevate who they do. It's just, I wish I knew more of which sketches they did, other than the ones like Wayne's World and Church Chat and all that. It's just, I just don't know enough about their direct SNL work, other than the really big ones.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And again, it's really sad that that kind of has faded into the history. I know there's people who are trying to put it all together based on interviews and articles that have come out and try to piece everything together. I know when I talked to my best friend Smigel, you knew I'd get it in, Tommy. When I talked to him, he was such a source of information as far as who had written what. And so it's still on their mind. So if you can kind of tap into the people who were on the show, that's not always easy to do. But yeah, hopefully someday we'll have a complete collection of knowing who wrote what. Thomas, are they on your ballot?
Bill, I always compared Bonnie and Terry Turner to like Linda Hamilton, because no,
I knew you did.
Man, Shari in the chat took the words right out of my mouth. They might have to be in for Wayne's World alone.
Yeah.
Like what an institution that is. One thing though, I think they were important because of something Lauren always says, is that the show airs in all 50 states. So, and I think they brought that sort of viewpoint and sensibility, especially, with a lot of the stuff that they wrote for Jan. Like the Brenda the waitress, to me, is like almost a perfect sketch. The writing, just the performers, Alec Baldwin, or like everybody in that sketch is great. And I think the Turners did bring like a unique perspective, a much needed one. And Lauren would obviously agree. I bet Lauren was refreshed to have them on the writing staff. When I did a rough draft of my list, they weren't on it, but that's one where it's just like I'm rethinking for sure, 100%. And you're making a great case, and this is why something like the roundtable that we're doing is so great. It caused people to kind of reassess certain folks on the ballot. I think the Turners should have a bigger look than they might be getting, honestly.
Yeah, it's that's a great point, Thomas. And when they came into the show, it was very much the Harvard white guys writing the show, and to get that perspective, I mean, I didn't know about Southern traditions. I was a teenage kid living in Pennsylvania, so getting kind of that Southern sensibility and the slice of life, they were so good at that, and we saw that with Brenda the waitress and so many other things they did. Let's go around the horn one more time and wrap it up here. Deej, what's one more name you want to make sure that people hear as they're filling out their ballots?
Chris Parnell, classic utility player, one of the most wonderful deep voices that he uses with great versatility. Like I said before, I'm a sucker for a really great voice, and he is just He can be straight. He can be silly. When he did the Centaur Doctor doing the job interview, he did a lot of sort of like old time commercials, like or even newer commercials. Where there's one where it was a sketch of the Steve Martin hosted episode of "Don't buy things you can't afford." He just you can pretty much put him in anywhere, and he's just one of those very strong anchors. I can't remember if he had really any recurring characters, but anything you put him in, he was always just a solid performer. You could always count on him, and he was also he was in Hot Rod, which is a very very underrated movie. What the rapping he did on Lazy Sunday, just connecting with that, and when he was also back for the I think he also when it was the rap he did for the anxiety song, but he's musical, and he was actually fired, but then he was actually brought back for one more season, because Will Ferrell championed him, and he's went on, of course, to do 30 Rock. He also had a small part in one of my favorite movies, Down with Love, as a talk show host, and he's just you need those glue guys. You need the ones who can help sort of put things together. And he should have been on the show much longer, but I'm still a big fan of him to this day.
Yeah, he's had quite the prolific career since actually rewatching 30 Rock, showing it to my daughter, and Dr. Spaceman. I mean, just
Dr. Spaceman, Dr. Spaceman.
Yeah, I met him last summer, and one of the most humble celebrities I've ever met. When I told him how much I loved all his work, and of course, he's on Rick and Morty too. He's a big part of that. He's on Family Guy, so does a lot of voice work. And he was just he was the kindest person I've met in that realm, where he was just very, very humble about where he had come from and how he'd gotten there. Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough about Parnsy. Not only that anxiety rap, but also his moment at the homecoming when he starts rapping on stage with Lonely Island. One of the highlights of that show. Thomas, is he on your ballot?
He is on my ballot, and I'm gonna have to give my backup for this last around the horn, because I was gonna actually talk about Chris Parnell for my last pick. Just the sketch performer.
Yeah.
He's just like he gets called the Iceman for a reason. He's rock solid, doesn't break. Not like there's anything wrong with breaking in certain contexts, but Chris just stayed in the scene. He was such a pro. The Lonely Island rightfully gets a lot of credit for boosting YouTube, but Chris Parnell needs to be mentioned with that too. He was one half. It was he and Andy Samberg. It wasn't the Lonely Island. Like, it was Andy Samberg and Chris Parnell that was in Lazy Sunday.
Yeah.
That Centaur job interview is a classic. The Dr. Beeman sketch, which is one time that I thought he might break, is Molly Shannon certainly broke, and Will Ferrell did, but Chris Parnell, I think he was about to, and he may have kind of broken when they cut away from him. But he was great in the Dr. Beeman sketch. He did Tom Brokaw a few times and was rock solid. Just one of the most dependable sketch performers I think SNL's ever had, which makes it even more bizarre that he was fired. He was so damn good and dependable. I don't know what they were thinking there. Thank you, Will Ferrell, for bringing him back, for helping with that. But yeah, Parnsy's on my list.
Yeah, definitely. Came back. I think it was budget cuts, and Will Ferrell was having none of that. And luckily, we got him another 3.5 seasons. After that. Thomas, it falls on you. I know you're going to want to go with Linda Hamilton. She is not on the ballot, alas.
She should. I've been lobbing her for JD for quite some time, but
it sounds like Linda Hamilton's my John Larroquette. Like, that's I would love Larroquette on this ballot. He was so good as a host, but
I think Jennifer Aniston's my John Larroquette.
There you go.
Honestly,
I'm feeling very much on the outside of this inside joke.
No, She
I
only
know.
hosted one time. I mean, it
Yeah.
was,
It was a good episode, but not because of her. But truthfully,
Yeah.
Jennifer Aniston's like what John Larroquette is to you. I think Jennifer Aniston's like a great host, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not talking about Jennifer Aniston. She's not on the ballot.
she is not.
Talking, I'm going to talk about a recent host though. Adam Driver. I really think has already done enough, and he's probably going to host some more. But I think, as it stands, he's done enough to be an SNL Hall of Famer. He has one of the great acting performances that I've ever seen in a sketch is the Career Day. I believe was it Abraham Parnassus? What was his name? Oh my gosh,
The Oil
that
Baron.
the Oil Baron. That might be Adam Driver's best performance of all time, and I think he's great in movies. But that Career Day performance is right up there with anything he's ever done. Beep Beep recently last season was one of the best sketches of last season, and it was basically because of the weird energy that Adam Driver and Andrew Dismukes can bring to a sketch. Undercover Boss, of course, playing his Kylo Ren character. Science Room, he was good at like the rage, like holding back that rage. A very weird sketch that he was good in was the marrying the ketchup sketch. That shouldn't have worked. That sketch should not have worked. But Adam, and I think who was the other one? Was it 80 that was in that sketch? I forget, or Cecily.
I don't remember.
It shouldn't have worked, but Adam played a huge role in like willing that sketch to work. I can't forget the Del Taco sketch. Oh man, I'm out of cash. Oh, yeah, just like Adam is a Hall of Fame host, and with more to come, which is the exciting part.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot on the SNN, like when a host comes in and just kind of elevates anything that they're in. I think we saw that with Goggins recently. Might not have been the best sketches consistently, but and we saw that with Walken quite a bit, where it's just a very unique way to host a show. Some people just get it, and when they come in, and Driver's one of those guys. I think he's a definite 5-timer probably next year. He's on my ballot. Deej, is he on yours?
No, he's not. Sorry. As much as I'd love to end this whole thing on a love fest. Again, appreciate what he does. All the things you've mentioned. My particular favorite one is, of course, the Death Star one because I'm a nerd. But the one I think is really underrated was the baby on the plane.
I love that one.
Yeah, just doing the head through the thing and then just his delivery on it.
Yeah, that face acting that he had to do
Yes,
during that sketch was
because
amazing.
that's all he had
That's all
was
it
his
was.
face.
Yeah.
And there's a definite intensity to him. But there's very few things I've seen him done on a lighter bit. So even with the stuff he did with in SNL being comedy, it was still pretty dark stuff.
Well, one of his monologues played on that intensity. He's like, "See, I'm going to show you guys that I can relax." And then he was like playing up how he's an intense kind of person. So he's very self-aware. You can clown on himself.
Yeah. And definitely talented. I've seen some of the other films that he's been in. So like when the House of Gucci, House of Gucci was playing in that, but just not one of the hosts I really.
Boo.
Sorry, I'm a John. When it comes to people who've hosted 4 times, I'm a John Hamm girl.
John Hamm, absolutely.
I'm a John Hamm girl too.
I had some John Hamm tonight.
I can go for some ham and bubbly.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, that's everybody's going to have their own list, and we've mentioned 18 really great names. There's going to be people who listen or watch and go, "How did you not mention these other 21 names that are on the list?" There's a lot of heavy hitters that we didn't even bring up. Chevy Chase, Cecily Strong, people like that. Don't bitch at us. Go vote. You have until Saturday, May 31st at midnight to vote. Find your ballot on Facebook, Instagram, or email the SNL Hall of Fame at gmail.com to do so. If you don't like our picks, that's where you let your voice be heard. So that's it. We're going to wrap it up here. Deej Behrens, welcome to the SNL Hall of Fame family. I hope you had a good time. Where can everyone find you, and tell us what you got going on?
Well, of course, We Heart Hater just launched. We're recording our 12th episode tomorrow. We're recovering the above average, the things they did for above average. Um, uh, and because Sherry has been a big part of this show, we've actually been talking quite a bit, and we've become really good friends because we come from the same era. So she was saying that she's going to miss doing the podcast, and they came up with the idea. So I have in development Saturday Night Ladies, which will cover everyone from people like Donna in wardrobe to the director, so everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera. Not only celebrating the women of SNL, but when the actual new season starts, because don't get me wrong, I love all the podcasts I listen to, but most of the SNL podcasts are pretty much a sausage fest. So, not that I don't appreciate y'all guys, but having a female perspective on SNL in different eras and the modern one, I feel is just a voice we really need. So I'm really looking forward to doing that with Shari, and we're all looking for maybe a third host and any lady who wants to guest. So we want to make sure that this just becomes a good thing because I've got the podcast itch. If you can thank John Snyder for that, I call him my pod father.
Papa John, yes.
Yep.
Well,
So
yeah, thank you. That sounds great. We Heart Hater has been a great listen as well. So yeah, keep up the great work over there. Thomas Senna,
Yes, sir.
what do you got going on? Thank you for joining me. As I said, you're my Dana Carvey this year. Sad to see it come to an end, my friend, but I'm sure we'll see each other on the other 4 podcasts that we've done together. What do you got
Exactly.
going on?
Yeah, Deej, I'm looking forward to that. I've enjoyed We Heart Hater, and you and Shari. I'm looking forward to what you gals are going to be doing for that podcast. So it was really nice to meet you, Deej. I'm excited about that.
I'm very open if you want me to join in on Pop
Yeah.
Culture 5 at some time. So just let me know.
All right. No, thank you. Yeah. So Pop Culture 5 is me and Jeremy Dove. So we break down things in pop culture, 5 essential whatever in pop culture. So what we've been doing recently, Deej, you said you're kind of a geek. So last week we celebrated The Empire Strikes Back. It was
Yep.
our pop culture game changers episode. So the whole episode was focused on The Empire Strikes Back. It was the 45th anniversary last week. Tomorrow, it's 5 essential Al Pacino movies. So Jeremy and I are going to dig in on that. And we have a new concept coming June 4th. It's the year in pop culture. So
Nice.
we're gonna be talking about a year, kind of the pop culture 5 style. We're going to be breaking down a year. It's actually going to be the year 2000 that we're going to break down in our own Jeremy and Thomas pop culture 5 style way. Exactly. I might have to use that audio from Conan. Yeah. So, so that's what we have going on. Look up Pop Culture 5, FIVE. We spell it out wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you,
It's
Bill.
definitely a great listen.
Thank you, Deej.
So I will champion the guy because I haven't been through all the episodes yet, but the one you did on the SL stuff and the top 5 Fresh Prince episodes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Appreciate you.
It's
Yes.
it's great quality because I'm a TV geek from way back in like the 70s. So television, I like movies, but television has always been my life's focus. So
Same. Well, yeah, thank you for both for joining me. As I said, voting will end this Saturday, May 31st at midnight. And then afterwards, the class of season 7 will be revealed next Tuesday night. Time TBD. We'll keep you posted on all the social medias. After we wrap up here, make sure you check me out over on our summer series on the Saturday Night Network, where we will be doing the greatest episodes in SNL history. We'll be counting down the top 50, and hopefully both of you will join John and I over there doing that this summer.
Just waiting for the sign-up sheet to come up for the Patreons.
Waiting for John to give me the signal from the bullpen there.
That's right. So make sure you do. Make sure you vote. You want your voice to be heard for the last time on the SNL Hall of Fame. For Deej Barons, Thomas Senna, I am Bill Kenney. On your way out, do us a favor, turn out the lights as you walk by the Weekend Update exhibit. The SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.